Good afternoon. I'm Brian Orlando. I'm back after a very long and illustrious vacation in the Galapagos Islands. My friend Ron Goldstein is back as well, and you come back to turmoil and chaos and politics in 2014.
I left the world for a little while. It didn't blow up, but it's on its way, it seems.
If you ask certain people, it's about to happen.
Yeah.
The big thing now is Obama's weakness, the ISIS situation. Obama's weak. He didn't have a plan. He faced the media and said, I don't know what to do. Granted, those weren't his exact words,
Right,
but that's how it was misconstrued.
Yes.
So what's going on?
Well, he said he didn't have a strategy. PR-wise, I don't know if that was the best thing to do. I mean, it's very disturbing to see these videos that these guys are doing. It's also very disturbing to see what they do as far as, chasing men, women, and children up a mountain and threatening to kill all of them and actually executing a percentage of them. They're very, very scary people. But Obama is, they say that he's weak. I think he's deliberating, and I don't think it's such a bad thing. I just don't think he should communicate that to the country. The country wants to see action. But you have to deliberate before you act. You cannot act and then deliberate. That's what we did under the Bush years with Iraq and Afghanistan, and and I just. It's not the smartest thing to do. He's done. Listen, he killed Osama bin Laden. You've heard all this stuff before, but he's killed Osama bin Laden. He did tactical strikes in Libya. He got rid of he helped to get rid of a dictator in Egypt. I mean, he has done a lot of this stuff.
So what you're saying is his actions are proving that he's not weak.
Exactly. He's doing it with action, and I don't think he's looking at politics. There's a lot of people in the Democratic Party saying, look, there's a midterm election in a few weeks, so you got to look at politics.
Now here's the big problem.
But when all these people, when all these women's, children's lives are at stake, you have to do the right thing. And I believe he is doing the right thing.
In politics, there's always a bigger picture. And yes, it's now September. The elections are around the corner. What he's doing now, maybe it is the right thing short term, but is it going to be the right thing in the long run? The long run being 2 months away during the midterm elections.
Without looking, this is what he's, Syria, Assad. Assad is guilty of killing hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children, his own people. He has decimated this country. So if we go in there and get rid of ISIS, we're doing Assad's bidding. Is that a good thing? Should we just march right in there and do that? Should we do that with every hot spot that's going on? Should we go back into Iraq? We were in Iraq for 10 years. We knew when we got out of Iraq that this was going to happen, that Shia and Sunni were going to go after each other. If we're in there a week, a month, a year, a decade, a century, this is what's going to happen when we leave.
But I'm not the guy you have to convince, and that's the problem. He's not saying these things. Barack Obama, or as the right would call him, Barack Hussein Obama, is not saying these things. He's looking the camera in the face and saying, I'm not sure if I have a plan.
You don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe he can't say anything. Maybe he wants people to think that.
But shouldn't a good president, like a Clinton, like a Reagan, like someone that's able to talk the political pants off of his followers, be able to convince you that it's going to be okay? You know that I lean to the left. I'm not so sure this guy hasn't sold me.
Well, he's pissed off people on the left. He's pissed off people on the right. I'm not so sure it's all a bad thing. I just wish people in the center would see this. And it's a flip flop. During the campaign, his words were golden, and he was such a great orator. And then he got in, and it seems like the words fall flat, but his actions speak. He delivered health care to millions, where so many presidents, Republican and Democrat, started with Republican presidents, couldn't do it. He's righted the economy. He's done all this stuff. Now they're going after him for foreign policy. I trust this guy. I trust him. And I know he's not going to do everything that listen, there's a lot of stuff. I'm with you on a lot of stuff we don't agree with Obama on. I'm with you on the NSA stuff. I'm with you on the Patriot Act. I'm with you on all this stuff. But I have faith in this guy. I know that sounds like a cliche. I know that sounds naive. But everything this guy has said he was going to do, he's going to do. He said he doesn't have a strategy yet. He's got to formulate one. Which would you pick? Which would you pick? And I'm not talking to you, Brian Orlando. I'm talking to you, Mr. Voter. What would you?
I'm gonna
Assad or ISIS? Which one?
I'm going to pick the guy who gives me results. Unfortunately, that's not the way politics work. You, being a man who works with free media, who uses public opinion and awareness to get people elected, have to know that it's not looking good for him, and the public perception is key in your line of work. You're right, he did deliver health care, but he delivered a Christmas gift in a brown paper bag. The entire execution of the healthcare system, of the website, it gave Republicans and his opponents enough to put doubt in people's minds to make me think maybe it wasn't such a good idea. And even though now we have over 10 million people subscribing to the healthcare system, there was enough distraction going on where too many people would think it was a bad idea. That's the problem I have with this guy.
Do you know how hard it is when the entire opposition party, the entire party, uniformly, who goes into survival mode and says, no matter what this guy does, we are going to vote against it, and he still gets it through. He had to think, I'm not going to put a Democratic proposal in. I'm not going to put a Republican proposal in, of course. What would the finished product look like? And that's the one I'm going to put out there, because that's what the American people would want. And he had to do that with all this opposition. I've never seen a president perform in history with so much solidified opposition. And someone will say, well, there's a reason for that. No, yes, the reason is survival of the Republicans. Think about 2008. Think about where the Republican Party was. They went into survival mode. They had to. And they've done a brilliant job. But this president has got stuff through despite that. And I think they hated Lincoln, they hated Teddy Roosevelt, they hated Franklin Roosevelt, they hated John Kennedy. Years after this guy's presidency, and I wrote this in my piece, this guy is going to be looked at as a great president. Now you look at me, and everybody else will look at me with like the dog goes like this, like, huh? But mark my words, it's going to happen. With all those past presidents that I mentioned, Washington, Jefferson, they all had their strong, loud detractors, made them look like they were complete failures. Mm-hmm. And then after a while, when it all settled, when you saw what this guy did, when you saw what these people did, they got on Mount Rushmore. And I believe that Obama's heading in the same direction.
So let me ask you a question. Since you're a guy who worked on his campaigns and helped him get elected in the first place, let's say the rules change in 2016. Barack Obama is allowed to run for a third term. At this point, with all of the perceived failures that this man has gone through, how would you get him reelected for a third term?
That's a really good question. Really good question, Brian. It's really hard. Here's another problem. No matter who you have in there, in the middle of the second term, it just starts to rot. It all starts to rot. And it's because of our instantaneous, comprehensive media coverage, whether it's on your phone or on your laptop or in your newspaper. I mean, and we live with these people. And after 6 years, you're pretty tired of them. You want to change. So anybody says stuff, it's gonna grate on you. It's gonna build up, and it's like, oh my God, yeah, I'm so sick of this.
Sounds like my marriage.
But so for anybody to win a third term would be really, really tough. Having said that, I would market it around. This is a guy who doesn't talk; he does the walk. Mm-hmm. And you have all these other people that let them get up and talk and match them to his walk, and he could win a third term. That's how I would do it.
You got two presidents that stand out to me that were political, and that their perception, even now, looking back on it all, are much bigger and even skewed as to what they really were. Reagan, who Republicans hold up on a pedestal that's embarrassing.
Right.
Reagan
talk about deficits.
Right. Tripled the deficits, the spending, but Reagan spent it on things, Russia was our enemy. He had to.
Did endorse gun control.
And that's the thing. Republicans who clutch their guns today seem to forget that Ronald Reagan, their hero, was all for gun regulation.
Right.
Not restriction, regulation.
Right.
Which is what any other president is for today. Regulation is just misconstrued as restriction.
Right.
Then you have Clinton, the liberal president, the liberal hero, the first black president. Don't ask, don't tell.
Right.
The Defense of Marriage Act. He was as to the middle and even to the right as you could possibly get. But they can talk the political pants off of anyone.
And that's what I have a problem with, because we have now gotten into an atmosphere with all this media coverage and everything that we expect. Everybody's now a political consultant. We expect them to talk a certain way and act a certain way. And people like the Republican Party, and yes, people like the Clintons, they adhere to that because they think that getting elected is the most important.
Sure.
And I think that the reason why Obama won in 2008, and specifically why he won in 2012, because we had gotten a black president in 2008.
Right.
2012, he was just reelected. As I said, we reelected the man, not the
Color.
right. So they respected the fact that even though he marketed himself, even though he said stuff that he didn't mean, the degree that he did it was a lot less than a lot of these other people. I mean, the shameless stuff that they do, the symbolic stuff, the don't ask, don't tell was symbolic. If you remember with Bill Clinton got in and he said he got it day one. He wanted to have gay people in the military.
Right.
And then he got bucked by the military, which all presidents have fallen into that trap. Obama, Kennedy, all of them.
Well, what he did.
No, so he listened to his military advisors, and he got cold feet, and he realized, wait a minute, the campaign's not over. I got to win re-election. I got to get votes in Congress. I got to get the American people behind me. I got to be more political like I was in the campaign. So he comes up with this thing that he thought at the time was a moderate down-the-road policy, which is don't ask, don't tell, which turned out to be a really bad policy.
Right.
And this is one example of what a lot of people resent in politics now. They see this on their phone. They see this, that these people just adhere to politics. They expect it now.
Mm-hmm.
So when a guy like Obama, who does it a little to some extent, but not to the extent that all these other people do, I believe they respected it. I believe even if they don't agree with him, they're going to vote for him because they like that guy. Because that guy is telling you what he's going to do, and then he goes out and does it.
He had to find a loophole. It's a game. In 2014, don't ask, don't tell is embarrassing. In 1994, it was necessary, which is my problem with politics, which is why you do politics and I do radio. Ron Goldstein, political pundit, .wordpress.com is where you can find Ron's latest writing, and you do put a lot of blame on Obama. You talk about Obama's mistakes.
I'm from the NSA to the Patriot Act to a lot of this stuff. I do not agree with him on. He was not a pioneer on gay rights, and I'm a person who believes in equality, and he was not a pioneer there. So we fault now stuff is coming out that Hillary wasn't a pioneer. He wasn't either, but for the most part, I think that he has accomplished what he has set out to do. And I think that in foreign policy, I think that it doesn't look good right now, just like in healthcare, but down the road, unfortunately, I don't know what that does for the Democratic candidates in the midterm elections, but it's not an easy world out there.
Follow Ron on Twitter at Free Media Inc. and check out Ron's website, Ron Goldstein at freemediainc.com. We'll catch you next week.
Good fall.